This lesson is going to look at the horse stance in Kung Fu. So the horse stance generally just looks like this. And it's called a horse stance or horse riding stance because it's supposed to represent a person on a horse. Now, of course, let's give you one wide horse, alright? So you have to know a little bit about the history of the horse stance, how it's been corrupted by traditional, modern traditional martial arts. So let's say there is no traditional martial arts, okay? That every time a martial art is taught, even in a traditional fashion, to the next person, it becomes modern. It's impossible to go backwards in time and to see what it's like. And unfortunately, the history books don't really record martial arts. There's a lot of word of mouth and a lot of mythologies about it. So I have to go on what I've been told, and also I've had the opportunity to talk to some really old masters that now are probably in their 80s, and unfortunately some of them have passed away. And one thing I've learned from them is the original horse stance wasn't quite the way it looks like now. They say when they were younger, when they were growing up, some of them have been training the whole life in the families. They say the horse stance has changed, it's become modernized. So from what they told me, they remember it looking a lot narrower and quite a bit lower, quite a bit higher, more like a squat position. More like this. Okay, maybe it doesn't really suit the Western hip and leg ratio. Perhaps training is different, or you should train it from a younger age. What I do know is when I've spent time in Asia, you'll see people naturally just squatting. They'll be waiting for a bus or something, or they'll be playing some cards on the floor, and this kind of position is very comfortable because it's been part of their lifestyle ever since they've been growing up. You see children doing it, you see old ladies doing it about cities, waiting for buses, and just comfortable. People selling things on the street, they'll stay in this position for a little while, just come back up quite naturally and easily. For most Westerners, that seems almost impossible. So perhaps the horse stance that you see now has been Westernized, and even more so. Some styles, when I first started doing the martial arts, when I did karate as a kid, other styles from Korea, I did some of them too, and also even Choy, but of a different lineage. The toes will be pointing out, they'll be a little bit wider, and the hip will be arched back, like this. So I think you have to consider what the horse stance is for. And I think primarily it's not for fighting. No one's ever going to fight in that position. But people will naturally fight in a gently squat position, so at least they can create some power from the legs and the body. So see the horse stance in martial arts as being a rite of passage, something that you have to do, something that you need to achieve. But let's look at it now safely and in its most effective way. So the way it's taught in a modern sense is generally the spacing is twice the length of your leg, like this. And if you push the knees out, it should be straight down the side and straight across. And from what I've been told, the feet should be facing straight forwards. Now some people will argue this is potentially dangerous to the knee. Show you from the side. Like this, should be tightly tucked in, the back should be straight, this should be straight, that should be straight, everything should be easy, however you put the arms. Now, some people will say it's bad for the knee. And let's look at some aspects of that. Well, I'm certainly putting a lot of tension through the knee at this angle. Whether or not that's good or bad, I'm not a medical professional, I'm not a physiotherapist, I can't tell you that. But what you can do if you don't think that's right for you is to adjust your feet so that they're in line. With your toe. Okay, just as if you were squatting. So maybe just see this as being as a held squat. So if I was to do a squat, and you know about squat safety, it's never put the knee past the toes. So perhaps it would be more like this, the original horse stance, with the knee in line with the toe. But obviously this is not so effective for fighting, and in the stationary position, it's probably going to wreck your knees. Put in the horse stance with a stick, same thing. I can do it quite a long period of time. I've never had any problems from it, but it's not necessary. But I do think a certain degree of endurance is useful, and learning to do with pain. Most people in a low horse can't hold it when they first try. When it comes to my classes for 30 seconds. After that it becomes unbearable. 45 seconds, the lactic acid starts to build up. After a minute you find it really tough. Now, I like to think that people can reach 3 minutes in this position quite easily. It's all very good training. But which is most beneficial for you? 3 minutes of squats or 3 minutes held in a static position? So you have to think, well, why would you do this? And from people that I've known that have worked in like the door work, bouncers, this kind of industry, they talk about adrenaline. Every night they're going to get a certain amount of adrenaline because someone's going to have a confrontation with them. And a lot of them, they've told me in the past that they can't even sleep unless they've had that at some point during the evening because they get so almost addicted to it. But I know from experience too, even in an engagement situation, even if you know you're not really at risk and you're probably going to be able to win, you'll still feel your leg go. The leg will tremble because there's adrenaline flying through the system. You can't help it. It's not you're not a sign of being a coward. You just get the trembles with it. Legs start shaking. But holding this position, in a way, acclimatizes the person to the leg shake. So when it happens, it doesn't feel so alien. I remember the first time it happened to me, and I couldn't actually stop my leg from lifting up. I was thinking, what the heck is going on? I'm in this awkward position, my leg's raising up. Obviously, I don't experience that anymore, and I'd say it's probably because of some of the stance work. So I think being low is important. But to apply it actually within the fight, well, a little bit of squat's fine. If you look at any contact sport, like boxing, they will sink and drop a little bit. So let's just look at, obviously it's two extremes, isn't it? There's a classical training method, there's a modern application. I'm sure probably squats are probably better for you than holding a static position. But I think you should actually maybe just do all. Hold your static position. Maybe see how long you can hold it for, but don't do it every day, don't do it all the time. Maybe try and make an achievement, but perhaps strengthen the legs first. If you want to do that, you can do that through continuous movement. So you can go from your horse stance to your dingy-ma, changing. It's not a bad thing. Or even just work on different stance drills over and over. Practice your footwork where you're going forwards and backwards. That's a good one too. Now the classic horse stance isn't rigid, nothing is rigid and set, even though we're taught that this is a horse stance, but actually a good horse stance isn't just set like this. It depends on what you do with the body. If I was facing this way, I could be in a forwards horse, I could be in a retreating horse stance. If I'm putting power back, well then my hip needs to be in a different position. If I'm putting power forwards, so if my arms are forwards, my hips under. If my arms are back, my hips up. All this is very fluid. In the later forms, like the drunken form, well, there's a lot of movement with it. Okay? So don't be too rigid in your thinking about the horse stance. The basics are important. The basics are the most important thing. But basics are just a representation of strength. It's better that you squat. Yeah, it'd be much better to squat a lot, just so you get used to being low. It'd be better to do some good deadlifts. Okay, that would all improve your horse stance, rather than just practicing a weak stance badly, maybe damaging your knees. Okay, stance work's also important for kicking. All the kicks that we do come from the stance. The horse stance, the way I teach it, represents a roundhouse kick, is the same position. Horse stance is the same as a roundhouse kick. So when you throw your roundhouse kick, you're actually just turning in a horse stance. So this is the horse stance. Where we teach it in class, it's about 1 mat distance. Try and push these up, get the legs straight. You put the hands onto the floating rib, and push the elbows forwards. Should be roughly in line with your knee. So that's the horse stance. On the next video, I'll explain about dingy-ma, then cat stance, twist stance, kneeling horse. The 5 basic stances. But enjoy it. Don't take it too serious. don't be too rigid about it. When you're practicing your forms, or if you do practice your forms, it always looks nice when you go into a good horse and hold the position. But don't get too wrapped in holding it for any length of time. Okay? Holding it comfortable is great, but I recommend squats is always a good way. Obviously, if you have any kind of knee problems, anything that doesn't really feel right, talk to your doctor, see a physio before asking your martial arts instructor for advice.